What if the Egyptian Revolution failed? The Egyptian Revolution was a revolution in Egypt in 1952 organized by the Free Officers Movement, of whom the two most important members were Mohammed Naguib and Gamal Abdel Nasser. It would end with the abolition of the Egyptian monarchy and the creation of the Republic of Egypt under Mohammed Naguib and later Gamal Abdel Nasser, one of the most if not the most influential Arab politicians. But what if that didn't happen? What if the Egyptian Revolution failed? In this timeline the free officers fail and the monarchy manages to endure. Given that their close friendship with the British was one leading factor for the revolution, Egypt may slowly drift away. They would still maintain great relations, but would be more independent. One way of doing this may be by nationalizing the Suez Canal, but they probably won't block the canal to Israel. And so, while this still angers the United Kingdom and France without Israeli participation, they can't do anything so the Suez Crisis doesn't happen. And so Anthony Eden remains the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom until the elections in October 1964 when the Labour Party still wins. But 3 years before that, in 1956 the United Kingdom leaves Sudan, and thus it goes back to Egypt, which shared Sudan with the United Kingdom up until the Egyptian Revolution. This massively expands Egypt to becoming the by far biggest country in Africa. Egypt is with 3.5 million square miles the seventh biggest country, just barely surpassing India. This would just boost the popularity of the monarchy. In 1965 Farouk I would die and his son Fuad would become king as Fuad II. When he became king, he was 13 and so a regency is in charge. Liberals would use the opportunity to strip him of his powers and so in 1970 when he turns 18, he holds no political powers and the power lays in the hands of the democratically elected prime minister and parliament. Its main political parties are the center-right Wafdi Party, the centrist Sayyidist Party, and the center-right Liberal Constitutional Party. He is still king after 58 years and 6 months, making him the 22nd longest ruling monarch in the world just behind Al-Mustansir Billah of the Fatimid Caliphate based in Egypt. In this timeline without Gamal Abdel Nasser Arab socialism and Arab republicanism wouldn't be as dominant as in OTL, and so the monarchies in Libya, Iraq, and North Yemen would endure. Libya, just like under Muammar Gaddafi, would become quite wealthy but unlike Gaddafi wouldn't antagonize the West, which would lead to sanctions and stagnation. In this timeline Libya would be one of the wealthiest countries in the world, functioning basically like a Gulf state as it has a low population and a lot of oil. Without the Iraqi Revolution the Arab Federation endures. It may federalize in the future as the Arab Federation of our own timeline was more of a loose confederation between Jordan and Iraq. In this timeline the Baghdad Pact between Turkey, UK, the Arab Federation, Pakistan, and Iran endures. When the Islamic Revolution hits Iran the Arab Federation would intervene and would be soon followed by Turkey and Pakistan. Ultimately the Islamic regime was crushed and the Pahlavi were brought back to power, but this time under a constitutional monarchy. All three of them did have plans to at least take some lands from Iran, but were pressured by the United States not to. The United Kingdom already left its military structure after the Turkish invasion of Cyprus and maybe at one point, probably after the Cold War, the United Kingdom may fully leave and the Baghdad Pact, now fully independent from foreign powers, may expand into other states like Syria, Egypt, or maybe even Israel. An invasion of Kuwait would never happen, and thus the US wouldn't invade Iraq. This, coupled with the fact that Iraq as part of the Arab Federation is already friendly to the US, leads to the Iraq War of 2003 not happening. The Arab Federation would be quite a formidable power and would be, with Egypt and Saudi Arabia, one of the three most powerful Arab states. As for North Yemen, the monarchy endures as well. South Yemen probably still joins the north. The Yemeni civil war wouldn't happen, as the most important reason for the revolution was that the Shia Houthis were unhappy over losing their privileges they held under the monarchy. Maybe a Sunni militia may rise up in the south, but for the sake of simplicity, let's say nothing happens. As for Tunisia, not much happens geopolitically, but the nation is overall more stable and democratic, just like Iraq and Libya. The 6 Days War wouldn't happen in this timeline as it broke out when Soviets falsely told Nasser that Israel is mobilizing at the Syrian border, leading him to mobilize as well. Here Egypt isn't friendly to the Soviets, and so this doesn't happen. With that, the Yom Kippur War also doesn't happen. A Camp David agreement wouldn't happen as well, but instead Israel would gradually approach the Arab world as there wouldn't be a conflict after the Palestine War of 1948 to 1949. In this timeline, the Arab Federation would still own the West Bank, and Egypt the Gaza Strip, which would change the perception of the region. Rather than it being Israel who controls it all, it is Israel and two Arab states who partitioned Palestine. Hamas may also never exist. Without support from the Islamic regime in Iran, which doesn't exist, Hezbollah probably doesn't exist as well. In Syria, the United Arab Republic doesn't happen, and the Assad family never comes to power. Syria may either join the Arab Federation, making it even more powerful, or it would remain as a democratic republic. Its two main parties would be the Liberal People's Party and the Conservative National Party. The Syrian civil war almost certainly wouldn't happen. When the Soviet Union would invade Afghanistan, the United States couldn't just support the Mujahideen through Pakistan, but also Iran. While Pakistan gave support to the Islamist Taliban, Iran would support the Royalist National Islamic Front. Ultimately, I think the NIFO would win, and the monarchy under Mohammad Zahir Shah would be restored. Without a Gulf War, May 11th not happen, as the US sending troops into Saudi Arabia was what radicalized Osama bin Laden enough for this to happen. The war on terror wouldn't happen, and the United States wouldn't take an MLRI assertive role in the Middle East. During the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, Armenia would be even more screwed, as Iran wouldn't even help them, meaning they are all alone. It is very well possible that Azerbaijan annexes Goicha Zanshur. Azerbaijan may then join the Baghdad Pact and NATO. Ultimately, the Arab Spring would be far smaller, if not non-existent. In this timeline, Nasserism and Arab socialism wouldn't be as big as they ultimately got. Arab republicanism also just doesn't exist, as the only Arab republics are Mauritania, Algeria, Somalia, Djibouti, Lebanon, and maybe Syria. Nonetheless, the Arab world is actually more democratic in this world, and also more stable and peaceful. This also spreads to Iran and Afghanistan, who are more stable and monarchist, and the Middle East would be almost universally friendly to the United States. If you liked the episode, leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe. Goodbye.